I mean, I was in the UK end of January till mid-February, and there was discussion about the coronavirus. There was discussion about, will that even affect us? Probably not. It was very naive kind of way of talking about it. And then when I flew home from Sweden on March 1st to Canada, I started noticing people taking more precaution, and people were coughing everywhere. Like, I travel so much, like most of the year, and so many people were coughing on this flight. I was thinking, I haven't really seen or heard much about coronavirus yet, but I for sure got it on this flight.
What month?
I was in Paris the top of March, or right at the end of February. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, so that's right there.
Yeah. So, but
were you there for vacation or for performing?
No, was there. We're doing some production work with this artist, Victory Boyd, and we were there with Kanye West, and so we were just working on Victory's record, and Kanye was doing a fashion show in Paris, and so we went to Paris because he was working on the record, and why not? Why not go to Paris and work there?
And speaking of Europe, Sus, weren't you recently in France?
Yeah, I was on tour actually, and it was crazy because I traveled to France, to Paris, and I had that feeling that something was wrong, like something was gonna happen. We had our first show the next day. And that night, I see the news, and it's Trump saying that he's gonna shut all the flights from Europe to the United States. And it was 3 a.m. there, everybody was sleeping, and I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I was so stressed. They had to buy me a flight because I'm not a US citizen. I'm under a tourist visa. So I basically went to Europe for one day.
It's a scary time right now just because so much activity happens, like LJ was saying, right at that summer. Like, you're gearing up for it all year long. You might make 50% of your bread just in 3 months.
Jafandi, if I'm not mistaken, you're also heavily involved with the worship community, right?
Yeah.
What's been going on with, how has it affected services? I mean, like, what is your outlook on that whole thing?
I play at a couple different churches. I play at a church with Sus sometimes, actually.
Yeah. We play together in New York.
You guys aren't hosting any services any longer, right? Or
no. So it was first we did a live stream service, and then somebody's spouse had contracted the virus, and so they just had to shut that down. They were like, all right, we can't do that anymore. And so we've been doing, the music director has just been creating tracks, and we've been creating like live tracks where everybody sends their stems, and that's been streaming every weekend for the actual
cool.
So it'll be like, we'll do like 2 to 4 songs or 5, which is a lot to record something every week and mix it and have it cool for the weekend. But it's one thing to play live, but it takes a lot more concentration when you're recording it. So it's definitely made me more aware of what I need to work on.
We're worried more about cash flow for these places that are starting out. If you're not making any money, you're going to be paying bands, straight out the gate, not knowing what kind of crowds you're going to have. So is it going to be a small crowd? Are they going to have limitations on the amount of people that you're going to have in the place? I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be scared to go out, even when, the ban is lifted. I know I'm not really going to race out and be like hanging out in, big crowds when it all is said and done. So it's just kind of taking it as it comes and seeing what the scene offers us, really.
Well, I mean, traveling before all this, a lot of germs in traveling, whether there's a pandemic or not. I mean, it's what I do, and it's what I have to do. I'm enjoying not traveling. I'm enjoying staying in one place, but when it's time to do it again, I do trust that it will be the right time. It will be safe to do so again. I think the right precautions will be taken. I think, even if it's a year from now, even if it's 6 months from now, I just trust that once things start getting back to normal, it'll be a safe place to do so, and the world will be set up for that. Well,
I will say, though, a friend of mine said to me is, think about live performance like the theater. Theater's been around since, the 5th century, the 4th century, and it's lived through a lot of plagues, and people still have gone to things. So I think it will take time, but I'm generally optimistic that people are going to get themselves back there.
Agreed.
It's going to look like a middle school dance for a little while, I think.
You make this old boring dad feel I feel like the most uncool person these days. It's so funny. Like I'm here playing in the creek in the yard with my 2 kids, you know, like under quarantine and stuff. And we're like, our biggest thing lately is I get these barred owls, and I'm using this app by Cornell University that has all these different calls where you can like call a male or a female, or several of them fight and think that there's other males and females in the area. So I've been using this app to call all these different species of birds into our yard. And my kids are like, "Whoa, that's what a red hawk looks like." And
you're like a Disney princess, man.
Yeah, it is. This app is really awesome. Yeah, you can call any species of bird, and like they'll show up.
You have to diversify. If you're a musician and you can't play the blues, maybe now's the time to learn to play it, because anybody can appreciate that music. I always tell students, now it's time to practice it. Students are like, dude, I don't want to play this. I'm going to rock. I'm like, yeah. And if you don't ever make it in rock, what are you going to do next? You better learn some different styles of music. You better learn to inspire. I can tell you this, when I see Eventide live every day, to me, Eventide's just doing it. We're carrying on.
I think we went lockdown like March 13th. Parents were like, I'm not coming, like, no way. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard. And, you know, like, as Brev said, with the teaching online, it's not my favorite thing to do. I do it, but there's something about seeing the way someone's sitting, seeing their hands, seeing their fingering positions, and it's always, you know, and it's circumstantial, like, you know, like my house looks kind of dark right now in there, and I can't see, you know, they can't see me. So I always feel like I'm kind of not giving people everything that I want to give as a teacher, but people still love it. People still want online lessons. So if I'm there to provide that, you know, that's great. But
I know, Ariel, you have actually, you laid out a total instruction course via TrueFire, right? How does one go about doing that?
Know somebody.
Steve, you were talking about the virtual show, man. You know, we just did ours this past Saturday, and we were real hesitant to do that, just because it's, you know, it seemed like everyone was doing that and asking for money, and we were just like, it's hard to do. Everyone's hurting. But we just thought we'd give it a try, man. And, you know, it was more or less like a studio setting. You know, we might as well have just been tracking a live record, and we just live streamed it. We made good money, but more than that, it was just great to get together and play. And, yeah, it was great. It was one of the most fun shows I've played in a long time, to be honest with you.
No, cool, man.
How did you feel about not having like any applause or any reaction once you finish the song? That's the weirdest part for me, is stopping and then it's like dead silence, man.
All right, audience, I'm trying to make a Negroni. What do I put first? The gin, the Campari, or the vermouth?
I have an answer if you want it.
Sure.
Just put it all in equal amounts. Pour it into a glass of ice, like a full glass of ice.
Got it.
There you go. Just make sure it's equal amounts.
Yes, I got the measurement.
Pour it in, stir it how much you like until some of the ice melts. Strain it over and more ice. Good.
Yeah, I even got my block of.
You got it. You look like you're a pro.
Listen, a pro. This is not my first Negroni. But I don't know if I'm making them right, you know?
I was selling shoes in Flushing, ladies' shoes in Flushing after I got out of school. And I got a call, do you want to work on the truck, man? So I came, it was before Dave Hewitt too. And Frank Eubank, right? Frank was running the truck. And then the great thing about the truck was, you know, like the very first gig was Yes in Duke University, Close to the Edge tour. I mean, like a huge band.
Oh, wow.
And I went from knowing absolutely nothing, driving the truck. My friend Tom and I drove the truck down. I ran over a deer and killed a deer on Route 95 on the way to the gig. Blood on the back of the truck. Had to go wash it off.
That was famous.
Unbelievable. And then, you know, by getting on the truck, though, I got to meet you guys who were, you know, I mean, Jay would come in and engineer sometime. Different guys would work with Frank right at the board. Frank was more like the tech guy. And then, you know, some different guys would come to work on the truck. So I get to meet everybody. And then at one point, the general job came up after I must have done about maybe half a dozen of the live gigs and just carrying the wires around. I didn't know anything. And then the general job came up. Mitch hired me, and I came in with knowing absolutely nothing, and didn't know that much more when I started cutting a couple of years later.
Paul Prestopino hired me on the spot while I stood in the reception office as the janitor. And I was a janitor till I got a union janitor. I believe Ernie was his name.
I had tried to get a job there. I had dropped a resume off, and I'd come back, and that building was a nightmare for me anyway, because on the 9th floor of that building was my draft board. And I didn't like being there at first, but then I went in a couple of months later and I asked if they still had the resume, and there was a guy standing behind Carmelita, or was it D? Maybe it was D. Remember D at the front?
Yeah, D. Lee.
And he said, "Oh no, he's not here anymore. I'm the new studio manager. I have your resume." And I went, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "Check back with me." So I go out and I stopped at the coffee stand in the lobby, and he comes out a minute later and he says, "I didn't want to say anything, but I'm firing the guy was standing next to me. Call me on Friday." He fired his brother-in-law.
Roy took me on, and then I became like Roy's guy for a while. I brought in Frank Ubeck, and I brought in Dennis Ferranti.
Dennis.
Dennis had been a singer in a band I was in. He didn't know the first thing about it, but there were two great ways of getting a job at Record Plant that Roy was kind of running at this point. And that, although Jack Adams was the chief engineer, and that was, you had to have a goofy personality, or you had to be Italian. You know, one step up the ladder at Record Plant was you would do demos for people. And Roy would insist that you do the demos 4-track.
2-track for me.
Why was that?
2-track for you? 4-track. So you had to do a mix, the whole rhythm section, and allow a track for overdubs. And it was a great learning experience.
Wow.
And he let us have free time, you know, after midnight to do things. And that's how we learned. I mean, he was very generous with that.
And Roy would call me and say, "You got to come and check this place out." So I went over one night and I slipped into Studio A, and I think it was Jack Adams. I think he was doing some vocals with The Who. And Jack Adams used to monitor with all 5 quad speakers on at the same time, with the monitor pot all the way open.
I was assisting.
Wow.
And I walk in, and all I hear was the breathing of whoever was doing the singing. And I'm thinking, man, if anybody hits play, this is going to tear my head off. It's so loud, you know. And luckily, I was able to get out before that happened. But it blew me away, just the whole vibe of the place. It was like the coolest club to go to.
Yeah, but you realize Shelly came from a background of recording, because his father and his uncle had Yakus Brothers studios in Boston.
Right.
Oh yes.
I did.
Shelly was born in a vocal
recording, right?
Born in a direct.
I feel like we all have this unique experience and this approach that we learned in the day that really works and created records that stand the test of time, you know.
Yep. Amen.
I'm tearing up.
Jack, do you remember the night they opened up at Max's?
I do, absolutely. I arranged that.
Nobody knew who they were.
Well, now here's the thing. I wanted Cheap Trick to open for Aerosmith, but they wouldn't do you that kind of favor. So what I did was I arranged for them to play at Max's, and I invited 2 guys from Kiss. So Gene and Paul came to the show. Cheap Trick was incredible. Of course, they were always incredible. They were just amazing on stage.
They played for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Gene threw $100 bill up on the stage, and
Rick Nielsen
Rick Nielsen ate it. And Gene called me over and he said, these guys have got to open for us.
Oh.
Because if they opened for Kiss, Aerosmith would come to me and say, hey, how come they're not opening for us? You know, you're our friend. What's going on? So they did a tour with Kiss, and then they did a million tours with Aerosmith. So
I just remember Rick had like a 50-foot guitar cable and went down this. Remember the tables used to come out from the stage? Yeah. And he just kicking drinks left and right.
Guitars on Dam of the Torpedoes. Any recollection of recording them?
Yeah. How were they recorded?
Yeah.
Very well. No. Jack, do you remember, Jay, do you remember when he got the Spectrasonics board?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What year? About
70.
So Roy is standing there with this board that just came probably a few days before. It's being wired up. And Roy is standing there, in his right hand, he has a cup of coffee, and he's just looking over the console. And I'm like, I'm pretty new. And I turned to him, and I hit his arm, and the coffee was flying on top of the board.
Oh.
And I'm standing there watching it drain onto the floor, and I couldn't apologize enough time. And Roy said, just hold on. And he turned the board off, and he poured water all over the board. I said, Roy, I said, Roy, didn't I make enough of a mess? You pouring water all over the board? He said, don't worry, it'll be fine. He said, the sugar from the coffee will ruin everything, and we'll dry it off with hair dryers and before we turn it back on. And don't you know, a couple of days later, after it was all dry, he turned it on, and it was fine. But man, I figured he'd wait till I cleaned that mess up and then kick my ass out of it.
We were doing one of those songs, I think Personality Crisis. And David Johansen was in a booth singing a ref for the band. And David came in, and Todd was already complaining about how terrible it was. David came in, and Todd said to him, you know, that's going to sound really good when we put like harmony on it. And David looked at him and he said, harmony? Are you accusing me of having melody? All the time that I was assisting or producing, I was keeping a book on what worked and what didn't work. But I worked with a lot of producers. I mean, the guy producing The Who, the theatrical thing he had going, Whit Lambert, who, when we finished that, we did 2 weeks at Record Plant. And the band would take me out every night. Like at midnight, they would say, meet at the Navarro, and they had the whole 9th floor, and Keith Moon and Pete Townsend, they had the front 2 suites facing the park on the 9th floor. But every night we would meet there, Keith Moon would never come in the door. He would come through the window, which meant that he would walk out. He'd climb out on the ledge, open Pete's window. This is the 9th floor, a high 9th floor, and then climb in Pete's window, and everyone in the room would think that was totally okay. You know, they would just go, hey, Pete. Bruce Springsteen once walked on the ledge of the Record Plant 10th floor for quite a long distance.
And those top pieces were loose.
Yeah, and they were curved, right?
They were curved.
And Stuart, you guys had, what's his name on from Gear Sluts last week, right?
Oh, yeah, we did.
And he was talking about something that Jack knows what I'm talking about, because I think it was Bob Ezrin I first saw put the 57 on the console in the tissue box and do a human beatbox.
Yeah.
Jack, you used to do it too.
Yeah. I used to do a cowbell in a booth.
Yeah. But a lot of times we would do it from the control room.
Yeah.
You know, because like, okay, here comes the break. We better keep them in time.
Yeah, well, I would let some bands speed up a little bit for the chorus and then bring them back down for the verse.
Yeah, we didn't have a click track.
No, and I'm glad we didn't.
I think I left playing in the cover band because LJ and I were playing a gig at the Marlin in LBI, and I remember I went up to the front of the stage to take a solo, and I played the first note. I think it was like Sweet Child of Mine, and it just went, meow, and I just looked to the right, and there was just a drunk girl on stage on my pedal board hitting every single thing.
Oh my God.
And dude, that was my exit from the cover scene. I lost it.
I mean, listen, we once shaved Matt's beard on stage during a gig one time. I mean, I don't even want to don't even want to think about how many germs.
Hey, I use several artisanal shampoos for this. So
It looks artisanal.
We got 150 euro to shave my beard on stage. I'd do
Where
it
was
again in a
that?
heartbeat. That was somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
Perfect for that.
It was a moment. Yeah, I believe Chris Hatfield shaved my face while Steve sang Wonderwall, but changed the lyrics to be maybe you're gonna be the one who shaves me.
Yeah.
It was met with great something.
Yeah. If that's not a window into the skill set needed to work for Savage Pianos, I don't really know what is.
Grow a beard, be willing to part with it in front of a room full of people.
Did you grow that beard that same length back in like 3 days? I bet you did, dude.
Yeah, I went backstage and came back and it was back, but it was.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was one of those things where it was somebody in the audience, people tip us for songs, and somebody in the audience was just like kind of daring us to do it. And
yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny. It was, I think, one of those nights that week we also were all playing the show in our underwear, unbeknownst to anybody who was our.
That was the night I found out Steve was funny. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember your last day at Eventide as an intern, and we brought you to Building 2, which is Building 2 at Eventide is kind of like this horror, like storage, dude, full of like gear that you've never even heard of before. There's like the first computer ever was there. Like
Commodore PET. Cassette drive.
Abraham Lincoln lives there too.
There are alien ghosts there too, for sure.
Definitely an alien ghost in there. There's like a Faraday cage where it's just like it's a really weird place, and that's where we built the studio now. But we took Matt there his last day, and we were just like, "Yo, Matt, can you grab something from the back hallway?" And then we would just sneak around and bang on stuff, and like we're gonna scare the shit out of this kid.
It worked.
But yeah, recently something that I've been into is I've been eyeing this guitar for forever, just like, looking on Reverb, looking on eBay, seeing if it's out there. And I found one that was for sale, and I'll show it to you now. And it's a G500. It's made by Roland. It's like a late 70s guitar, but it's actually like a MIDI pin. This guy who lives in LA, Nate Mercero, I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's a producer. He works with like Leon Bridges, and he put out this record. And it's all this guitar and the Roland synth. So the synth is like you can do a blend where it can sound like regular, so. And then you can blend in the synth of it, and then the synth is pretty it's just, oops. So it's very, it's like a complicated thing. I don't know, I'm such a nerd for all this sonic.
I got an ARP 2500 system. Bought it from a university. At that time, a lot of universities were getting rid of this stuff. They didn't care about analog.
The golden age.
The golden age, yeah. I came in at a really good time during the early 90s. I was really hungry for this stuff, and at that time, people just wanted digital workstations, realistic sounding stuff. All the analog stuff was selling for Behringer prices at pawn shops. I'd go in and buy 303s and 808s and these things that, sell for $4,000 now for a couple $100. I bought 3 303s, one new in the box for $150. My ARP 2600 I paid $250 for. I bought an Oberheim expander for I think it was $150 at a Salvation Army. It was on the floor sitting next to a bunch of golf clubs. When I walked in, I go, no way. Are you kidding?
That's a good day.
Yeah, I walked in and I was like, this is when is this going to happen again? Probably never. And it never did. But I mean, just crazy stuff like that. I was Jupiter 6s, Jupiter 8s. You think of all these. I had a CS80, all the big iconic, monster poly analog synths from that time period. I was able to just get my hands on so much stuff, and it was great because it was cheap. And number two, it was a great way to learn about synthesizers.
What do you have planned for the H9000 that you want our folks watching at home to know?
To the folks watching for the H9000?
Yeah.
Well, we have a Pro Tools HD expansion card that right now is in beta. That's super cool. Now you get to take advantage of that I/O, so you get to sync your sample rate between any device you want that's in the loop sync. 32, yeah, thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. 32 channels in and out via just one Digilink cable. So no longer to the days of analog, man. Now just one cable and you get 32 channels. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what's your favorite algorithm of like the 2,000 that are in there?
That's
Seeing
easy.
if you're the one who knows it in and out.
Oh man, Galaxy Borders, for sure, for sure. That's 100% the best algorithm on H9000. It's
Nice.
so unique. It's so unique. If I had a mixer, I would have you guys listen to it right now. But it feels like a granular. Maybe I'm using the wrong word, but like it feels like a granular effect because it takes your signal and it will hard pan it right and left, and it will pitch it up an octave, down an octave, and it also has a built-in reverb and delay. So it's just this huge atmosphere.
Galaxy Border sounds killer.
It sounds killer, man, for sure.
That's part of
Dan, are you smiling because that's one of yours?
No, I'm smiling because it's just a funny concept.
But you don't have to hit the piano key in the piano. The moment when you open, the color of the piano, there's so many different things when you can hit the piano and make different crazy sounds, and you don't have to hit with the key with the hammer. You can use drumstick, you can use forks, so many other things you can use.
We did a prepared, like a John Cage prepared piano sample library that I did for Sony. It was a long time ago for Sony Media. It was part of an older collection, one of the premium collections. We did this whole, I used like a rake. I played the string bed of a piano with a metal rake. And then what else did we do? We used hematite magnets where we would like let them go on top of the strings to create these like ricocheting, like metallic sort of stuff like that, and then hammering nails into each string so that you would create these left and right tensions that basically copying a lot of techniques that John Cage would implement. And then interweaving the strings with tin foil. That's another really, I don't know if you mess around with tin foil is incredible. When you wrap tin foil around like harp strings or any sort of resonating string instrument, you'll get these almost like, it's like real-time granular synthesis happening. I always tell people there's no right or wrong way to approach it. Whatever emotionally gets the idea across to the people is what you should do.
Guys, I have a disclaimer from Kevin Wallen on the comments saying that don't use the foil stuff to bake when you use it on nickel strings.
Or in the microwave.
Here's the thing. Oh yeah, definitely don't put foil in the microwave. But Kevin, here's the thing. Foil has two sides, baby. You just gotta flip that and then put the cookies on the other one, and then you're good to go.
If you put the cookies on the piano string, we're talking about like a whole other range of ghost notes.
You're blowing my mind right now. It sounds sweet. That piano sounds really sweet.
It's a sweet sound.
Actually,
Jacob, can I ask you a question about some sound design stuff? Because I've been watching Blue Planet, Planet Earth 2. I remember, I was at Remote Control as an intern 3 years ago and just asking you some random questions about the Buchla.
Yeah.
What's your approach to, a lot of the stuff is, it seems like you're blending with the orchestra so well. And I've just been studying this music during the quarantine.
When I got into the Buchla stuff, it was really all to do with Alessandro Cortini, who's a good friend of Mr. Divine's, I think.
Yeah, I talk to Alessandro almost every day.
Yeah, and I just there was a like sonic state back in 2015 or something that showed his setup, and I had also seen a couple things of him playing on the music easel, the Buchla music easel. Well, for one thing, I'll say Alessandro Cortini, he's just a raw talent. Aside from that, I was not familiar at all with the Buchla stuff. I kind of seen it in a Sound on Sound in like 2013 or 10 or something. And I thought it looked beautiful. I went out on a limb and bought a re-released version of the easel. And that was right around the time we got Planet Earth 2. When I plugged in the easel and I started sending it through like guitar amps and stuff, it just started acting like this like a live animal that like felt like a human performance in the way that I felt like a lot of stuff wasn't. You kind of get these really, really organic sounding things that sound like acoustic instruments. I didn't think that was possible with synthesis until I got that. And then I went hog wild and bought a whole ton of stuff.
talking about Campbell and his guitar sound. I think that's ultimately important. You can get a shitty guitar, have a shitty guitar and a shitty amp, a shitty drum, a set of drums. But if you get the right player and they have their sound, that's all you have to capture. And I think we all know that. But it's a good point, especially for the people.
Yeah, works the other way around too. You can have the best stuff in the world, get a shitty player.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've had that happen. Yeah.
Ask you, how's Eventide going? What's the next phase in technology? So,
well, without giving away too much, all of us have been fairly busy, especially on the software side. We just announced a new piece of software, Crush Station, out as a plugin. Last week, we're working on like 4 or 5 more, and then we're also working on the stuff that's coming out next year. All the marketing behind it. So let me tell you, I'm not short of work.
I missed the original Crush Station advertisement. Do you remember that, Tony?
The lobster.
The lady walking the lobster?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
That was my
cool.
ad.
I've seen that.
Really?
So,
Great.
That was
killer.
PSA
That
on
was
that
one
one.
of the best ads ever.
Yeah, that ad is offensive to certain people.
We got a letter, right?
Wait,
yeah, we got a letter. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone complained to us about being insensitive. How it was demonstrating cruelty to animals or something.
I'm like, that photo's from 1912.
I think if people if people are really, really vegan, that is true. That a photo like that is offensive.
Well,
as opposed to kind of vegan.
As opposed to kind of. I mean, if you're, there's a spectrum.
Vegan with a little bacon.
Oh, we didn't use it when we relaunched, on desktop.
Right. Well,
No.
Look, in terms of the ad, I just feel like we succeed if someone's noticed our ads.
We've had a lot of people come up to us at trade shows and just like industry friends who say, dude, that lobster ad, the lobster lady. That's probably our most successful ad campaign.
I mean, it's striking.
And we didn't use it for this release. What's wrong with us?
So,
when we first came out with
post it.
When we released it for H9, I remember like internally we kept talking about crustacean. It sounds like a lobster, sounds like a shrimp. And me and Alan were going back and forth, shout out to Alan, about like, what's the best way to market this? And he was just like, well, we got to bring the people in on the joke, right? Because it's an internal joke, but we have to bring the outside in. And I was like, well, if you're going to go crustacean, we got to go full lobster. And that's when Tony was just like, have you seen the lobster lady outside of Russell's office?
Actually, that could be the tagline. Crustacean, go full lobster.
I was thinking we could do a drinking game. Guess which H9 algorithm
That's
is.
what I want to know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can't even see it.
Can I pin you in my?
Does this constitute industry secrets?
I don't know. Can you guys guess what that would be? That's the question, right?
I want to take a guess.
What do we win?
Triceratops.
Well, it's a drinking game, is what Russ said.
people
So
win-
if you
If
guess
you
the
get
wrong
it wrong, you
algorithm,
have to take a drink, or if you get it right, you have to take a drink.
It's like, what if we put Tony's Tesla on the line?
what if I'm thinking about it? Do I have to take a drink?
Yeah, it's a drinking game.
I am going to guess Triceratops.
No, hold on.
You guess wrong, you may take a drink.
I'm going to guess it's the Publison Infernal Machine.
Oh.
I don't think that had
Wait,
music.
is this the softball? Is this Crush Station?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like black hole.
No.
I'll
give you a hint. What would require a crazy grid like that?
Resonator or arpeggiator?
Oh, Bohan's the winner.
Whoa, Bohan.
Bohan, you get a Tesla.
Wow. You get to take a drink. It's arpeggiator.
Good job, Bohan.
Well, I've made the custom UI for that.
Oh, well, maybe
I've probably seen this before.
Yeah, he's probably got the pattern in his head. I'll have to pick a different one.
This is a whole new level of nerd for me, this schematic drinking game thing.
Yeah, how did we end up here in the first 12 minutes of the stream?
Bro, I miss the free seltzer water at the office. Seltzer water bill is through the roof right now. It's insane. I don't even want to know how often that thing at work gets restocked. Because oh my god,
Black
so
cherry is
seltzer.
really good.
Sal will come to your door.
Me and Holly
I
were
have
just
been
talking
severely
about-
undercarbonated.
Nino.
Me and Holly were talking about investing in a soda stream because the seltzer bill is ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
It's not the
my
same.
God, it really isn't the same. The
It's not
bubbles
the
are big.
same.
I don't know.
Yeah,
if you
it's
do-
not.
I got the Drink Mate, which is better than Soda Stream, and
Drink mate, what is that?
it's a competitor product, but it carbonates pretty well, I have to say, and it certainly
All right.
stays in a bundle.
Usually, if you refrigerate it overnight, it'll probably work better.
If
Or at
you
least
start
that's-
with cold water, it works better. Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, that too. True.
Yes.
Yeah.
No
Yes.
kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I read that the amount of carbonation is directly correlated to the temperature of the water. So that's why, like, when you open up a really cold can of seltzer, like those bubbles are going nuts.
Hey, James, are people like watching seltzer tips now from us?
I think so.
Y'all know
This
a
is
lot
actually
about
quality
this.
entertainment.
To be
Why
fair,
else would you come here?
it is cocktail hour, so it's kind of
is.
appropriate.
Fair,
I mean,
Yeah.
corrected.
I think I am going to come up with a preset called Seltzer Tips, though.
or fizz.
Ooh, gold H9, Coatsy.
Yeah, baby.
Bling.
Oh.
You know, that's 24 karat gold.
How many
real
people
gold?
have the gold H9s?
I got a gold H9.
Pat has a gold H9. How many people have gold H9s?
I have a gold
I'm
H9.
curious. Okay, Tony's got one.
Raw aluminum one.
Oh, that's cool. How many are out in the wild? Like,
I think we only made like 100 or 200 of them.
100? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that many.
well, and they won't reproduce in captivity, right? So
No.
it's really hard to.
Like pandas.
Yeah, you know, if you ask the right person, you may find a gold top plate at Eventide hidden somewhere.
hidden somewhere, as in like I could put it
Stock
on
room.
my H9.
Yes, there may or may not be some gold top plates.
Still in search of a copper H9. That's the only thing I need to complete my collection.
Ooh.
I have a copper H9. I'll be right back.
I got one.
I don't have a copper, but here's my hand-painted one.
Woo!
Well, not
Whoa.
really.
a nice
It's just gaffer's tape and a spray and a can of spray.
Wait, did you do that, Tony?
Yeah. Well, it
Oh,
wasn't
that's
really
cool.
hard. It
Wait,
wasn't
that
very
voids
hard.
the warranty if you paint it yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can't get that.
It's
We
not
can't
difficult.
service that for you anymore.
This is duct tape
I'm
and
actually.
then a spray can, so was totally easy to do.
No, yours aged well.
That's cool.
This is my
That's a cool
copper
project.
unit.
Nice.
I got a really cool one, but
Get
I gave it to Kevin. Tony, when you gave us the kind of like blemish copper top lace, you told us to. This was when I first started. You told us to spray it with vinegar and let it age. So I don't have it with me, but I did one where I taped off
Yeah,
like
I was
Van
there.
stripes to it, and then I sprayed it with vinegar. So when you take off the stripes, it's like really nice and shiny Van Halen, but like blemished copper. It's dope.
So it actually did something?
Yeah, I totally did something. I
I was just kidding. I was just kidding. I wanted to see if you'd do it.
definitely did it.
It worked.
It worked. It totally worked.
With mine, I put vinegar and salt, and I put it on a paper towel, and then I put the wet paper towel on the pedal, and I put it away for 2 weeks. So I have all these weird, like different colored holes. If you like see it up close, you're like, oh my god, that's weird.
It's starting to sound like a kimchi recipe.
Yeah.
I put it in the American circulator for 2 hours.
Pistol Pete put a blowtorch to his copper unit.
On a bike. Right?
Yeah.
What?
That's badass.
Yeah,
holy shit.
It colors the copper, but it wasn't hot enough. I needed an acetylene torch, so if anyone's got one.
Jay and I are about to accept mixes online. So we'll be working together on mixes online. And you could contact us at UNKLEREMIX1 uncleremix@gmail.com.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll do a little shameless self promotion.
Who are you?
Yeah, who? I have a website, shellyyakus.info, and I'm going to be doing some Facebook Live stuff where I do some question and answer, tales from the crypt, you know, stories from the crypt. I'm also going to be doing, if you follow me on Instagram, Shelly Yakus, I'm also going to be doing some classes for how to make a better sounding home studio, how to improve your sound, how to just make better sounding finished music from my point of view, you know.
But I started this thing on Facebook called Pro Tools Basics because there are there's a lot of musicians I know here in town that are on the road with artists, and they're hurting for work, and also they're not used to working at home anymore. So some people don't know how to do the simple things in Pro Tools. So I'm doing something live on Facebook for Pro Tools, and it's interesting, and everyone's very thankful that I'm doing that because we got to get music out.
It's great to see everyone and just keep strong and hanging away, and let's get through it and all get in a room together, you know.
Let's do that.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Sorry I was late.
It's good to see you, Ed. Good to see you, Ed.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Jack, Shelly,
Jack, Steve. Well, Steve, it's okay to see you.
Annette.
Resto.
Cubby.
Rod.
Cubby.
Ed. Stuart, thanks for covering for me.
Paul Prestipino, wherever you are.
Wherever he is. Wherever Paul is.